He's back. It did not last long. Jurgen Klopp is back. But is he managing Germany back at Dortmund? No, he's in charge of multiple football teams sponsored by an energy drink. But seriously, how has this happened and will he be successful? Klopp started at Mainz, he then moved to Dortmund and then he finished his managerial career at Liverpool. But what's the difference between this other than his actual role? He's not an underdog anymore. The complete identity of who Jurgen Klopp is going to manage, it's worlds apart from what he used to be. Mainz was his humble beginnings where he was a player, then became a manager and took them into the Bundesliga for the first time in the club's history. He then moved to Dortmund where they finished 13th the season before, and then he took them on a wild ride where they won 2 league titles, 1 DFB Pokal, and also managed to get to a Champions League final. And then obviously what to say about Liverpool. He brought the club out of the ashes, won the first Premier League in 30 years, and if it wasn't for Pep Guardiola, then Jurgen Klopp would have a historic run of trophies. But like I say, Red Bull are different, and I think we all know that. F1, Red Bull are again seen as the posh boys, the rich boys. Everyone hates them. Max Verstappen is one of the best drivers in F1 history and they just don't care. They'll go over budget restraints and they just don't care. They're clearly so ambitious and they've shown it. And then in football, you had New York Red Bulls being founded in 1994 and then Salzburg being taken over by Red Bull in 2005. But it's really Leipzig that is the black sheep of the family. It's definitely the most successful, but it's also come with the most controversy. Red Bull bought SSV, I want to say this name correctly, Macronstadt. If any German viewers, correct me if I'm wrong, they bought them in 2009 and they had aims to get into the Champions League within 8 years. But the reason why it's been seen as so unpopular with German fans is because of the 50+1 rules. Leipzig bought the club in 2009 and at the time they only had 17 members, and apparently when I've researched this, a lot of them were Red Bull employees. And the importance of this is because in Germany, a private investor can only have maximum 49% share of the company and therefore cannot make majority decisions. 51% has to go to the fans and therefore keeps football within the fans' hands, which keeps ticket prices down, which keeps the fan enjoyment and the fan experience up. And that's why I think everyone can agree we're so jealous of German football, because it just seems like a great place to be. But with this, Leipzig were able to take over the club because obviously the lack of members, and they were able to just funnel more money into the club because they didn't have any pushback. Yes, there are other clubs that have a bit of murky waters, Bayer Leverkusen, obviously from the pharmaceutical company, and then you've got Wolfsburg as well, but I think they have a bit more history to be somewhat more credible, but obviously everyone's got the opinions on those. But with Leipzig, 100% they are seen as the Antichrist in German football. Nowadays, a Leipzig membership is about €1,000, which you compare it to a Dortmund membership, which is roughly about €67, if I'm not mistaken. It's an insane amount, and they know why they're doing it, because it puts people off having control of the club. And I think we can all agree the main issue with this is who Jurgen Klopp is as a man. He's presented himself as a very working class, humble, in touch with the fan base kind of manager. And that's completely fair enough, because I think he is. He goes for pints with the fans after the Champions League final with Liverpool. He's not the normal type of manager, and I think that's appealed to people over the years. But the problem is with this, if he's taken a job at Red Bull, he's essentially selling out a lot of the values that he's presented to all of the fans over the years, and especially Dortmund. I think people in Liverpool, obviously, because in the UK, we're not as touched in with the German football culture as obviously you Germans are. So we can only see this from an outside perspective, but especially if you're a Dortmund fan, and I believe they protested before a Champions League game in 2017. How can you have a right mind? I mean, Jurgen Klopp managed Dortmund this summer in a friendly game. He took over, I mean, it might have been a publicity stunt, which I think it was, but it's still cool to see him back in a Dortmund top. So then how can he, in the same breath, go to Red Bull, who Dortmund hates Red Bull? How can that be the case? And there'll be people saying, well, it doesn't matter, he can do whatever he wants. Of course he can, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be this very outspoken person about fans' values, in terms of the Super League, in terms of ticket prices, in terms of the fan culture at football clubs, then you can't then take a job at Red Bull. But let's take a look at what he's actually going to be doing at the club. He's not going to be a manager at any of the teams. He'll oversee Red Bull International Soccer. It's not a day-to-day job, but it's overseeing football activities such as the development of coaches, scouting, and also helping the sporting directors in the various clubs. Klopp said, by joining Red Bull at a global level, I want to develop, improve, and support the incredible football talent that we have at our disposal. There are many ways that we can do this, from using the elite knowledge and experience that Red Bull possesses to learning from other sports and other industries. And that's true because if Salzburg, if Leipzig, if New York all want to take advice off other sporting avenues that are sponsored by Red Bull, then you just have to take a look at Formula One. Them and Mercedes are at the top of the F1 game at the moment. I personally think he's more of a figurehead than an actual, complete director. I think he will have voices within the club, but I think he wanted a year off. He said he didn't have enough energy, and I'll be shocked if he goes into a full-on job overseeing 3 football clubs, basically. But I do think he will have involvement, like I said. But is that a good thing? Because Klopp tried to be somewhat of a sporting director at Liverpool over the last few years. Michael Edwards and Jurgen Klopp had a great relationship at Liverpool. Michael Edwards was the former sporting director at Liverpool. He's back at the club now at a more senior role. But them two together, they made that club successful over those years. Jurgen Klopp was an oracle on the pitch. He knew everything about man management, about tactics, and Michael Edwards was someone who could say no to him. Jurgen Klopp wanted Julian Brandt. Michael Edwards said, no, let's get this person from Roma called Mohamed Salah, and we've seen how that's turned out. But when Klopp took over the unofficial sporting director role, Julian Ward was in there for a bit, but then he left. But it seemed like it was Klopp and Pep Lijnders who were in charge. I do think the transfers and just the dealings around the club went downhill a bit. During that period from about 2016 to about 2019, maybe even 2020, every single transfer for Liverpool was nearly brilliant. There was a couple of ones, maybe Karius, maybe Ragnar Klavan. I still love Ragnar Klavan. 90% of those transfers have worked out well today. However, post that period, and especially when Klopp became more involved in transfer dealings, as far as I can tell, it went downhill. You saw money spent on Darwin Núñez for about 65 million. You saw money spent on Dominic Szoboszlai, who was a great player, about 60 million again. You're seeing players like Arthur come on transfer deadline day on a loan, which was just a complete panic buy. They were losing out on players like Tchouaméni, Bellingham, and it all seemed to be a bit mismanaged. So it will be interesting to see how he does, because I don't really think he has a massive eye for scouting. But obviously there's hundreds of people around him who will be helping out. So I think good luck to him. I think he will do a good job because, again, he's an oracle of football. Regardless if he can pick a good player or not, he is brilliant. One, at man management. I mean, we've seen that. He's maybe the best man manager we've ever seen in professional football. And 2, he knows how to win. But it does have similar feelings to maybe when Gary Neville and David Beckham took all the money to support the World Cup in Qatar. You can have whatever feelings you want about that. They were very outspoken, at least Gary Neville was, about it. And then he'd gone to take the money. Neville's excuse that he could do more over there commentating somehow than just sitting in England. It was a stupid excuse. He should never have said it. But Jurgen Klopp, obviously, he's not going to say, I could do more within the Red Bull camp than I can outside of it. He's not a double agent. He's not trying to take the company down. But it does seem a bit hypocritical. But someone who we might feel sad or happy for, Pep Lijnders. Pep Lijnders, the former assistant coach at Liverpool, he moved to Salzburg in the summer after Klopp left. And he's having a poor time of it at Salzburg at the moment. It looks like he could get sacked. But is this a good thing for him that his old boss essentially is becoming his new boss? I mean, surely he felt like he broke the shackles away. But on the flip side of that, Klopp could keep him. Klopp could say how good he is and how promising he is and essentially give him a lifeline. But I think the most interesting one, and we all need to keep an eye on this, is Leeds United. As I've said in many videos, I'm from Leeds. I'm very in touch with Leeds United as a football club. And if anyone's seen the shirts, they've got massive Red Bull sponsors on the shirts this season, which means Red Bull have a minority stake in the club. A new stand in the stadium's been proposed. We're seeing American investors, the 49ers group, people like Will Ferrell, people like Russell Westbrook from the NBA, all come in and invest. And Leeds probably aren't going to be in the Championship for much longer. They're probably going to get promoted at least within the next couple of years. And Klopp said he never would manage another Premier League team. Would he be a sporting director for Leeds United maybe? I mean, there's clearly the most potential through a club in the English leagues. And how would that go down with Liverpool fans? Because I'm sure the Dortmund fans feel very betrayed at the moment. Would Liverpool fans feel very betrayed in the future if he does something with Leeds? But we'll see. Let me know what you think about Klopp's decision. I love him. He has brought me such good memories as a Liverpool fan. But again, I can see a lot of hypocrisy in his move. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. If you could leave a like to the video, that'd be great. And if you could subscribe to the channel, that'd be fantastic. But yeah, thanks for watching.